Clarence Thomas just roasted Russia hoaxer Marc Elias at the Supreme Court. Yeah, that Marc Elias, the same prestigious lawyer who's been the errand boy for the Clintons for who knows how long. This is the guy who is almost single-handedly responsible for the Steele dossier, which resulted in the Russia hoax being perpetrated on the American public for almost half a decade. Now, in order to understand just how brilliant this roast is from Clarence Thomas, we have to understand the legal underpinnings of this case. So the Supreme Court is currently hearing NRSC v. FEC, and to really distill this case down to its bare bones, the Senate Republicans want to lift the limits for how much each party can coordinate with candidates for both congressional and presidential races. Right now, there are strict limits for both the GOP and the DNC as to how much they can coordinate with candidates, and the reason this exists is because there are finance contribution limits, right? We can't donate as much as we want to political candidates. So in the past, one of the loopholes would have been to donate as much as you want to the political parties, and then the political parties would spend as much as they want on the candidates. So they got rid of that loophole, and there is a limit as to how much coordination can go on. Well, the GOP is arguing that that is stifling free speech. If you support a candidate, you should be able to donate to that candidate. But Democrats are arguing that the Supreme Court has already set a precedent here. So FEC versus Colorado Republican Federal Campaign Committee, the Supreme Court ruled in 2001 that, hey, these limits are perfectly constitutional. But Republicans also have another argument. They're saying that that precedent and that law is actually outdated because of the decision made in 2010. So this is the Citizens United decision. And of course, Citizens United declared that corporations and unions can spend on campaigns and can spend on political candidates. And so if corporations and unions can do that, if their free speech is protected, where's the free speech for either of the parties? And so this is what's being debated. This is what's being argued in front of the Supreme Court. Now, listen very carefully. Clarence Thomas asks a very specific question. It is a very straightforward question, and Marc Elias somehow says very little while he says a lot, and Clarence Thomas asks for clarification, and the way he does it, whoo, it is a burn if I've ever seen one.
Thank you, Counsel. Justice Thomas?
Just so I'm clear, is there any First Amendment interest in coordinated expenditures?
Your Honor, I think that there is an interest, a First Amendment interest in coordinated expenditures in two regards. Number one, there is an interest anytime any entity or person wishes to make a contribution to a political committee. They are expressing First Amendment speech. They are engaged in First Amendment speech. Buckley said that is satisfied by allowing them to contribute. So essentially, the speech is in the first dollar. It is in showing support for that candidate, and that's why the contribution limits could be $3,500, because the idea to contribution limit candidates, because though the donor is engaged in First Amendment activity, engaged in First Amendment speech, it is essentially symbolic speech. It's the act of giving money. So that's number one. Number two, I think this case would be a very different one if the as-applied challenge, first of all, if it was an as-applied challenge, but second, if it was an as-applied challenge where what the party wanted was its own speech and it wanted to coordinate that speech with the candidate. That would pose a very different case. And there would be different considerations on how that could be limited, which is why in 1996, the brief of the Democratic Party went to what the scope of coordination was, that there should be less of a sweep of what is considered coordinated. But if you're saying, is there First Amendment speech with respect to paying the bills of a campaign so that the campaign staff stayed at a hotel, it is just in the act of making the donation. It's just in the act of making the in-kind contribution.
I still don't understand what you're saying. If the party coordinates with the candidate and pays the bill, is that speech, or does that have a First Amendment protection, or is it simply, as you say, a bill-paying exercise?
It is speech. It is speech, and under Buckley, what it is treated as is a contribution, and therefore, though it is speech, it is subject to limit by Congress on how much can be spent in engaging in that speech.
That has to be the best 7-word mic drop we've heard from the Supreme Court so far. I still don't understand what you're saying. Marc Elias just went on and on and on. You know what he did? He created like this fog machine of confusion. He said so much while somehow saying very little. Clarence Thomas asked a very simple question, and somehow he wasn't even beating around the bush. He was just circling the drain with like this garbage, and it was like, can you make a point here? I think he was just trying to confuse all of us. I think maybe he was confused himself. Like, what was the point he was trying to make? Now, Marc Elias, so let's not forget, right? This is the guy who, like I said, is an errand boy for the Clintons, almost single-handedly responsible for the Steele dossier. So he was the poster child for the Democrat Party resistance for a little bit, right? MSNBC, back when it was MSNBC, CNN, the mainstream media, they had him on their networks all the time. Well, his performance at the Supreme Court was so bad. Take a look at this from Sean Davis of The Federalist. Talk to any actual practicing litigators, and they will tell you Marc Elias is a bad lawyer akin to a tone-deaf singer who makes up for his lack of talent with volume. Hearing him get roasted by SCOTUS is amazing. Who is the idiot who picked him to argue this case? Yeah, that person needs to be fired. Or, well, if you're on the side of Republicans, maybe that person needs to be promoted. But that's not all. Elias did so poorly today and embarrassed himself so badly that all his friends in the corrupt corporate media, the ones who gave him time on TV constantly to peddle hoax after hoax unchallenged, completely blacked out his SCOTUS appearance in the hope nobody would find out just how disastrous it was. And that is 100% true, because this wasn't the only case that was argued at the Supreme Court this week. There were a whole bunch of high-profile cases. And on all of the networks, Fox, CNN, MS Now, even some of the like ABC, CBS, they actually broadcast some of these hearings live in real time. But somehow this one did not get the light of day. Gee, I wonder why. Now, this case, SCOTUS, especially this current court, they're usually pretty easy to read and easy to predict, but this case, it's really hard to see which way they're leading, according to SCOTUS blog, if we just take a look at what was published there. But with Justice Neil Gorsuch remaining silent throughout the debate and Justice Amy Coney Barrett asking only one question, it remained difficult to make definitive predictions about the outcome of the case. And there are so many other cases where it's pretty clear where the Supreme Court is going to go. For example, if anyone watched the case regarding tariffs, they were really harsh on it and they were really skeptical. So the consensus is that they're probably going to strike them down. Of course, a lot can change, and just because they're skeptical and just because they ask tough questions, that doesn't necessarily mean that that's how they're going to rule, right? Maybe they were persuaded by the arguments. But here, it really seemed to be even on both sides. But we got a preview of some of the new lines of attack that we can expect from the Democrat Party. But, you know, as they say, there is nothing new under the sun. This is an attack we've seen before. But before we get into that, I would like to thank the member of today's Governor's Club. It is Mal Bogdan, 5734. The Governor's Club, these are people who give tips and super thanks to the channel. Thank you so much. I'm glad that you enjoy. Well, Sonia Sotomayor basically implied that Elon Musk and President Trump, they're both guilty of a quid pro quo. Yeah, we're bringing that up again. President Trump's first impeachment. Take a look.
This case is more speech is always better than less speech. You mean to suggest
that the fact that one major donor to the current president, the most major donor to the current president, got a very lucrative job immediately upon election from the new administration, does not give the appearance of a quid pro quo?
Your Honor, I'm not 100% sure about the example that you're looking at, but if I am familiar, if I think I know what you're talking about, I have a hard time thinking that his salary that he drew from the federal government was an effective quid pro quo bribery, which may be why nobody has even remotely suggested that.
Maybe not the salary, but certainly the lucrative government contracts might be.
Justice Kagan?
She makes that insinuation, she makes that claim, that conspiracy theory, and I just love the silence after it. Like, how do you even respond to that? Oh, no, they're not even going to respond to that garbage because it's garbage. Why give it any oxygen? It's just hilarious. Now, the salary, she wants to diminish that. I wish that the lawyer for the Trump administration, the Republicans, would have said more, because quid pro quo, Elon Musk donated millions to the Trump campaign. How much did he get for his government salary? Oh yeah, according to News Nation, Elon Musk does not take a salary for his work with Doge. In other words, he was paid $0, which makes sense given that he's, the richest man in the world. But that's not all. She wants to talk about those government contracts, right? Take a look at this headline from the Washington Post. Elon Musk's business empire is built on $38 billion in government funding. Now, that sounds like a lot of money, but all of his companies are worth a lot more than $38 billion. And now, the mainstream media, one of the ways that they mislead is actually through headlines, because they know that most people, don't actually take the time to read articles, right? People see a headline shared on Facebook, on X, and they just repost it without reading anything. And so people form their opinion just based on seeing the headline. Well, if you didn't take the time to actually click on the article and read the article, you wouldn't actually see the context of that $38 billion. You see, Elon Musk actually started receiving these government contracts beginning in 2003 when George W. Bush was president. And take a look at how much he received from 2021 to 2024. That's right. Most of these government contracts to Elon Musk came under a Democrat administration. They came under Joe Biden, and it's not even close. It would be one thing, people could doubt this if this came from Fox News or if it came from another right-leaning news source, but this is from the Washington Post. I think it's pretty safe to say that the Washington Post is no fan of the Trump administration. And even, so this was published in February of this year. So February, if you times that by 6, that would get us to December, right? So even if you take the government contracts in 2025 and multiplied that by 6, assuming that rate stayed even for the rest of the Trump administration, it would still be well below what it was under President Trump's first administration. So that, it just doesn't make any sense at all. And let's not forget that when Elon Musk was working for Doge, his companies, they took a beating in the stock market. They lost a ton of valuation. And of course, they've recovered and they've come back stronger than ever. But she's of course just trying to test out new lines of attack, which is really inappropriate coming from a Supreme Court justice. Now, don't be surprised if the Democrats pick up on this. Sotomayor lit the baton, and I'm sure someone in the party is going to pick it up and run with it. They're going to use whatever they can to attack the administration and attempt to get back at Elon Musk. As always, though, all of this is just my analysis and commentary, and that's what's happening in the world of politics from my point of view, and I would love to hear from you. So what do you think the Supreme Court should do? Do you think they should leave these limits in place? Should the GOP and the DNC be limited as far as how much money they can spend and coordinate with their political candidates, both for Congress and the presidency? Or do you think these limits should be raised or even eliminated entirely? Are these limits limiting free speech? Let me know your thoughts on that down in the comments below. I know there are going to be a lot of opinions on either side. Now, obviously, I think most people would agree we'd probably be better off with big money out of politics. But to me, look, if Citizens United is allowing corporations and unions to spend big money on political candidates, why can't the parties? There are so many loopholes already. It feels like you're limiting. You're basically letting all these outside organizations and these outside groups have massive influence in the political system and really handcuffing both of the parties. So whether or not that's a good thing in the long term, who knows? To me, I think it's a bit of a paradox, because I think the only way to counter the big money coming in from corporations and unions is through big money from the political parties, the groups closest to the candidates. You may disagree, and that's okay. And if so, let me know your reasoning down in the comments below and why. How would you fix the problem of big money in politics? Let me know your thoughts. If you haven't already, please be sure to leave me a thumbs up. I know it's a simple thing to ask for, but it really does help me reach more viewers like you in the algorithm. Be sure to smash that subscribe button and to check out one of these videos.